isn't enjoyable. Visit the Hemp House. We have a selection of 100% safe CBD pet products. Visit hemphousechad.com or come see us in person. The Hemp House in North Shore, East Ridge, and Ottawa.
You know, 3+U has been on the air now for 10 years, and almost every month of those 10 years, we've had a visit from either Dr. Jim or Dr. Randy Hammon at Northgate Animal Hospital. You can imagine all of the topics that we have covered when it's come to your pets and their health. But this morning, I think, is a first. Dr. Randy Hammon joins us via Skype this morning, and you wanted to talk today, Randy, about nicotine in your pets. Somehow this is something I had never even thought of before.
Well, you know, here recently for, the last few weeks, we've had several pets come in where they have eaten the cigarette butts. And that's how the pets end up, more likely than not, getting into the nicotine. Now, they can just chew up a cigarette or a cigar, or they can get into e-cigarettes. But all these things can toxic and potentially end up being fatal for the pet. So we've had several issues here recently where we've ended up having these pets come in on an emergency basis.
I'm guessing that you're talking more about dogs than cats. Would that be fair to guess?
More likely dogs, because the dogs, I jokingly say they eat whatever they're after first and then ask questions later. Now, what the cats will do, the way they usually get it, is they'll take a cigarette butt, bat it around and so forth, and then chew on it a little bit. But it's more of a dog issue than it is a cat issue.
Why do dogs do that, Randy? You can put anything in front of a dog and they'll make a go for it.
Yeah, they really do, and I don't know it. It could be if it's a female and maybe they're using lip gloss or some kind of cosmetic product and so forth. That can attract the pets. And what will happen is a lot of times a dog will end up scarfing up several cigarette butts. And what a lot of people don't realize is that when you're smoking a cigarette, you're going to get X amount of nicotine as a result of smoking the cigarette. Maybe anywhere from up to 2 milligrams. But with the dogs and so forth, 25% of that nicotine content is concentrated in the butt of the cigarette. So especially if it's a small dog, if it eats the butt of the cigarette, then it can become a toxic and up to a lethal dose for the pet.
So what is it that happens? What will people see? Because it could be that your dog or cat could get into the nicotine and you don't know it. So what symptoms are you going to see in your pet?
Well, a lot of times it's tremors, drooling, excitement, twitching. It can even go to vomiting. If they get just a little bit, it'll slow the heart rate down. If they get a fair amount of the nicotine, it'll end up speeding it up. The challenge is that if the pets get into this, a lot of times, it can look like strychnine toxicity, it can look like a chocolate toxicity, some certain insecticides, things along those lines. And, what a lot of people don't realize that you're only talking, for a toxic dose anywhere from 0.5 to 1 milligram per pound. So a cigarette's got anywhere from 9 to 30 milligrams of nicotine in it. So in saying that, 25% of that concentrates into the butt of the cigarette. And it's a situation where when that happens, then the dog, or cat doesn't have to be exposed to very many cigarette butts before it can be a toxic and up to a lethal dose. And then if we get into the e-cigarettes or the e-juice, a milliliter, which is only like 1/4 of a teaspoon, can, basically contain up to 36 milligrams of nicotine. So that can end up being a problem. Now, the good news with this, Julie, is that the nicotine in the acidic environment in the stomach is not readily absorbed. So it's a situation where it has to get into the small intestines before they actually start absorbing the nicotine. So if you catch it early and induce vomiting, then a lot of times we can circumvent a lot of these issues and so forth. However, if it's a situation to where it goes on for a period of time, then then the pets, it's going to become very toxic to the pets.
Okay.
The good news too is that the nicotine a lot of times stimulates the vomiting center of the brain, and sometimes if the pets get enough of these cigarette butts, they'll throw some of them up on their own.
So let me ask you this, then we've got a couple of minutes left. I would think that very often people come in and they have a concern, an emergency of sorts with their pet, but you feel some owner's guilt, right? Like you caused this somehow in your pet. Very important, I guess, that people are upfront with you about what they might have been exposed to. Otherwise, you can't help them the right way.
It is, Julie, and it's not just, and it can be, controlled drugs, it can be street drugs. So, it is a situation that, that you need to be forthright with your veterinarian on anything that you think your pet could have been exposed to. Cannabis can end up causing issues in pets, as well as prescription drugs and so forth that your pet, might have gotten into. So it is very important to be forthright with your veterinarian in the exam room, for them to be able to give the best chance of helping the pet. If the pet does get poisoned by the nicotine and they can make it through the first 4 hours of intensive veterinary treatment, we're in pretty good shape. And usually the liver and kidney is going to get this out of the system probably within about 16 hours after the exposure.
All right, Dr. Randy Hammon, Northgate Animal Hospital, thank you so much for the insights this morning.
Thank you, Julie.
You can find Randy and his brother, Dr. Jim Hammon, right there on Hammel Road in Hickson. Their website, northgateanimalhospital.com, and the phone number on your screen, 875-9033. We're back in just a minute.
Don't miss our 2 biggest days to save at Ashley Home Store. This Saturday and Sunday only, save 25% off store-wide, or pay no interest for 5 years with no minimum purchase and no money down.